Welcome to Something Came from Baltimore. I am your host, Tom Gouker, and tonight on the phone, I have the legendary drummer from the Talking Heads and the brainchild of the Tom Tom Club, Chris Frantz. Chris just released a memoir of his life and times in the music business called Remain in Love. Remain in Love was released in July 21st, 2020 from the publisher St. Martin's Press. The book is a love story. There's only a handful of married couples that survive the rigors of living together and working together in the music business. It's also the historical glorification of the New York City rock scene, as the CBGB's was the incubation center for artists like Patti Smith, Blondie, and the Ramones, and of course, the Talking Heads. Before we chat with Chris Frantz, let's listen to one of the most iconic hip-hop singles of all time, Genius of Love. My name's Tom Gouker. I'm calling from Something Came from Baltimore. I am a super, super big fan of the Talking Heads and the Tom Tom Club. So thank you very much. It's an honor to speak with you.
Likewise.
Now, I do want to ask some questions about the book, and then I really have fan questions. I wrote a whole bunch of questions down before I read the book, and I had to cross them off. Like, I wanted to know what happened to Adrian Belew. I wanted to know what the health issues were Jerry Harrison, because I remember reading an article in the Rolling Stone right when you guys were releasing Speaking in Tongues. So those are all answered, and I'm making the audience read the book to find those, so we're not going to talk about them. There's three arching things that I think are pretty awesome that I got out of the book. One is obviously the relationship with your wife, Tina Weymouth. There are living legends. There's like Ashford and Simpson, I think Paul and Linda McCartney, and Marilyn McHugh and Billy Davis, and I thought about the Captain and Tennille, but they broke up at the end, so that doesn't count. Yeah. So they didn't make it to the finish line. You know, it's hard to have a family-owned business. Everyone knows that. And you're working and you're doing your business together. There's no separation. It's really hard. I mean, anyone knows that if they have a family business. What was your secret of keeping it together?
You know, it wasn't always difficult. Most of the time it was very smooth. When there were some difficult moments, I think the most important thing to do is just be patient and be kind to each other, or try to be kind. Don't say anything that you might regret in the morning. In my case, I always felt like it was very important to keep the romance alive, whatever it takes, you know. If it just takes going to the movies one night, fine. But if it takes something, you know, that requires a little more effort, such as, you know, a vacation somewhere that she wants to go, then do it. You know, just I think it's important when you're working with somebody to try to balance the romantic life, or I should say accentuate your romantic life as much as possible.
She's got everything she needs. She's an artist. She don't look back. She's got everything she needs. She's an artist. She don't look back. She can take the...
You know, I was looking at your horoscopes because I was like, let me see if they're even compatible, because if they're not, I want to tell you right now. So you still have time to do a Captain and Tennille. So...
Yeah.
Okay, so I looked at it, and you're a Taurus, and she is a Sagittarius. She's on the cusp. She's right at. She could have been a Scorpio. So I did look at this online, and it's funny. I wrote this down before I read the book, and if you listen to this, this is identical what a story that you had when you told her you loved her at first. Long-term romance is credibly appealing to Taurus, and his star sign never puts their heart into a relationship that they're not convinced can go the distance. Oh, they are more capable of waiting until a Sagittarius comes around to the idea. And this story of yours, you confessed your love and she wasn't ready yet.
Right. She had another boyfriend. And to be honest, I had another girlfriend at the time too, but I could see that wasn't going to be a lasting thing. You know, with Tina, I got to tell you, it was really love at first sight when I saw her ride by on her bicycle. It just, you know, have you ever had experienced that feeling, love at first sight? It's like,
I know I had lust at first sight. I didn't have love.
okay. Well, they're very similar, I think.
I think they are too. They're very chemical, yeah.
Yes. In the book, I say that I made it clear to her that I was a very patient guy and that I was willing to wait.
Yeah.
And I waited. I didn't have to wait that long, only about a year.
There's another theme in the book that I thought was pretty cool, is that you guys were in the Rhode Island School of Design. You're both artists, and so you're really familiar with eccentric characters. Like being an artist, you know, you have the ability to be left of center and kind of whacked out as you want to be just to show your art. And because you were in that school, you both seem to be personally grounded. But you guys identify that an artist can be kind of crazy. So you went with the flow, and you've met a lot of eccentric people in your lifetime, and it didn't faze you. You just kind of went with it. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I have, you know, great love and respect for some very eccentric people. Not all of them, but and I know you have your fair share down there in Baltimore.
Oh my God, this is the home of John Waters. That was one of the reasons why I moved here. Polyester is my favorite movie of all time. If we could live in a world like Polyester, I'd be all for it.
Yeah, man, I hear you. You know, we were called back to RISD about 5 or 6 years ago to receive these honorary doctorates. And one of the other people that was invited to and who gave the keynote address at the graduation was John Waters. And I had met him before, just very briefly, you know, in passing. But we got to spend an entire weekend with him in Providence. He's a really fun guy. What's really great is now we're on his Christmas card list. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, I heard you get some cool stuff. My last takeaway from the book is that it's a love story about New York City. You went to New York to have that, you know, amazing experience that doesn't exist anymore. The CBGBs, where music revolution was started, incubation periods for major artists like Blondie and the Ramones, yeah, and the Talking Heads and Patti Smith and Richard Hell and television. Like, the best artists at that time period just came out of that location. And I bet you a lot of like young artists now go to New York wanting that experience. It just doesn't exist anymore.
Very, very regrettable. What can I say? You know, this is probably happening in Baltimore too, where the artists and the gays move into a certain area and make it nice, and then the real estate people come in and take over, start trading on, you know, the reputation that the artists and the gay people have brought to it. Prices go up, and then all the artists have to move away. Now, there's a time when everybody was moving to Brooklyn, but now I keep hearing about young people moving out of Brooklyn because that's gotten too expensive. And so they're headed to places like Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Maybe Baltimore is next.
There's a lot of people like that are bringing out books like from that time period. You're included, which is just a loving tribute of what we want New York to be. You know, like we're like, oh yeah, that very romantic. When it was the most dangerous city in America by Saturday Night Live standard, it was special and wonderful then.
Yeah, it really was. And I'm glad you realized that I was trying to convey that message. That now some people, detractors, have said, why can't he get over this? You know, why is he writing about stuff that happened 40 years ago? I guess they've never heard about this story. And
no, I mean, there's people at your age that have been in the business. I'm thinking of Cro-Mags. They just wrote a book. the guy who was worked for the Ramones. Their books are coming out, really giving a good idea of what's going on. It's romanticized at this point because it doesn't exist. It will never exist again. And what you got was like artists, like pure art and wonderful albums. So it does deserve, a mention. I mean, you have a great career. I would, if you glossed over that, I'd be really upset. This is stuff I would want to hear.
Yeah.
I love
Thank
how
you.
that Debbie Harry seems to be getting a good edit, through these like these books are coming out. She's coming out pretty good.
Debbie was always a lovely person and always very helpful to like younger bands and to people that, if you wanted Debbie to be in your video or something, she would do it.
Yeah, she's
if you needed, her to plug your movie or your book or something, well, she did it for me, didn't she? A really nice blurb.
Yeah,
But she's just a very lovely person, besides being one of the most beautiful women in the history of all time.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
And I would add a really great singer.
Oh.
I mean, that woman can sing and still can.
All right, so this is the portion of, we talked about the book. Now, these are questions that, as an obsessive fan, I'll never get to talk to you again. So I want to ask these questions. I hope you understand. I want to talk about 1981. Philadelphia was in love with Genius of Love, and they were also in love with Frankie Miller's Double Dutch Bus. Like, they were inseparable. They came out the same year, and they flooded the airwaves of the streets for decades. Like, they are massive, massive hits. And, you had a great visual. The video was fantastic. You crossed over in genres that no really other song did at that point. It was hip hop, it was reggae, it was R&B, it was world music, it was alternative rock. And what I wanted to hear from this book was that Sire went right into a boardroom and did a Beyonce, where they sat down and said, we're going to make this next album. We're going to culture the Tom Tom Club as, as something special. And it just seemed like they were like, oh, okay, whenever your next album comes out, that's fine. This was like one of the first times, I think, that a song captivated so many people from so many genres. The song is 40 years old roughly now, and it is amazing still. I feel that there was a missed opportunity from your label, who were like, oh, it's a side project. Okay, we'll move on. I think that this was too important.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point of view you have, and you're really right. I mean, yes, people worked that record from the record company, the promotion men. I can remember in particular a guy named Bobby Shaw, who was in New York City, the dance music promoter. And, he took Tina and I to meet all the DJs that were playing our record, like Jelly Bean Benitez at the Fun Factory, and Larry Levan at the Paradise Garage. And Bobby Shaw was working the record really hard, and with great success, I might add. But yeah, it didn't have the kind of promotion that Talking Heads had.
No.
But to be honest, it didn't need it. It just took off like a rocket ship, and everybody was so surprised. Tina and I were pleasantly surprised. You're right. It didn't. There was a board meeting. In fact, the offer of a record deal was rejected by Sire, by Seymour Stein. He said, "I've already given one to David, and I've already given one to Jerry. I can't give everyone in the band a solo deal."
Oh my God! I know.
Then we came back to him with a hit record. After Chris Blackwell, Island Records had sold like 150,000 12-inch singles of Genius of Love on import into America. Seymour Stein woke up and said, "Oh, I think I made a mistake." And he went to our manager and said, "What did Chris and Tina want?" And our manager said, "Seymour, I don't think there's enough money in the world for Chris and Tina to make a record deal with you right now." And Seymour said, "Oh, come on, Gary, what do they want?" And Gary said, "Enough to buy a yacht."
They should have gave it to you.
And we got a yacht.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It worked out. Yeah. They really could have looked at this as one of the first bands that hit many, many genres, and they could have really reached out to those genres. And that was what people were looking for. People were looking for inclusivity. They were looking for, being close together. World music was very familiar to people, and people just wanted to have fun, and the music was fun.
Thank you for noticing that. I'm in complete agreement with you.
David and Brian Eno were just coming off of Life in the Bush of Ghosts, and the media was real hype. They created this whole Remain in Light sound, and that was this basically their baby. I think you fleshed out the fact that Tina and you are the drum and bass of the Talking Heads. This album is one of the best albums of all time, and I think it's important that you fleshed out the story that your contribution was not sidelined, that you basically were the guts to this album.
Yeah. That's true. It was pretty hurtful when David decided to basically scrub our name from the credits, the writing credits on that album, because, when people look back in history, we were, with Talking Heads, we were interested in, getting famous. We thought, it would be fun to be famous. And we were interested in making some money, but we never had our eyes set on vast riches or anything like that. We just wanted enough money to have a good life, One thing that was very important to us was music history, like making our mark in music history that was the goal of Talking Heads. We weren't about the satin trousers and the snakeskin boots. Yeah. What I was going to say was, when your name gets scrubbed from the credits, then history looks at that song and says, "Who wrote that song? That's great." And it says David Byrne and Brian Eno. And you think, "Oh, David Byrne and Brian Eno wrote it." Well, it was very upsetting to us that after agreeing that it was written by 5 people, David and Brian went behind our back and changed the credits on the album cover. I mean, it's just a terrible thing to do.
Yeah.
And if it happened to you, I guarantee you would be very upset.
It's an iconic album. 4 of your albums are in the top 500 albums of all time. This is very high up there. It is you're similar to the Beatles, where they evolved. There was never an album that was the same. This album was completely different than Fear Music. It's a great album. Did you get a chance to listen to Angelique Kidjo's recording in 2018 of the whole album?
And you may find yourself living in a shotgun shack, and you may find yourself in another part of the world, and you may find yourself behind the wheel of a large automobile, and you may find yourself in a beautiful house.
I did, and she's great and everything. It's just not my cup of tea, really.
Uh-huh.
I love plenty of African records. I mean, really love them. That is not one of them. But, I think she has a very good taste in the songs she selected.
Yeah. She did a good job. I mean, I went and saw her live in concert for this, and it was weird to see these, 60-year-old white men on the front lines just dancing their hearts out to and I was like, oh, it's because of this album. Like, she was playing cuts from it. She didn't do the whole album, but I was like, it's not that they're Angelique Kidjo fans, they're Remain in Light fans. And it was weird to see these old men just dancing around like it was
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, I'm one of them guys now too. Yeah. And that was the reason why I went to the concert.
Yeah, right. Well, she never got in touch with Tina and I, so I'm a little. I know she got in touch with David, and I know she got in touch with Jerry, but we never even got a little note saying, "I hope you enjoy the record."
Oh, wow.
Or something.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
That's the way I feel about it.
Load gon' come tumbling down.
In a them higher wire. Oh yeah.
Jerry Harrison's producer du jour. He's throwing copper from Live, Poi Dog Ponder, and Crash Test Dummies. He's still producing and knocking out stuff. You guys did Ziggy Marley in 1989. It was One Bright Day, and you sampled Genius of Love on the big hit song. It won a Grammy for the best reggae album of the year. Is that something that you enjoyed? Do you think you'd ever do it again?
With Ziggy, you mean?
Just in general, Jerry seems to have a good run. People are reaching out to him for production.
Yeah.
You guys have the chops. Is that something that you'd put yourself out and say you'd be willing to do again?
Well, one of the things about producing records is the role of the producer is to make sure that really good stuff gets recorded. Stuff that the record company can use and profit by. But the other big role of the producer is that of the problem solver. And we just got a little tired of problem solving, and we thought we got our own problem.
Yeah.
We decided at a certain point, Tina and I decided to spend more time with our family. We had all of our parents are gone now, but 10 years ago they were still alive and well, and needed our attention. And we decided to put the emphasis on family and community up here where we live in Connecticut. We might still do stuff. Tina's working on a book now of her own. We might still do another record. We're thinking about doing an electronic record where, just Tina and myself, and on some drum machines and synthesizers, and see what. Just we love electronic music, and particularly Kraftwerk, but many other groups too. I mean, I even love the Pet Shop Boys.
Yeah. No. It's great. Stop Making Sense is one of the best concert films of all time. I was curious if you saw the spoof with Bill Hader and Fred Armstead. They did
I did.
a documentary now. The band was called the Test Patterns. Did you laugh at it, or were you horrified by it?
Sort of a combination of the two. But yeah, we laughed at it. We even did it. They came up here and shot a little thing of Tina and I watching it and commenting on it. It's on YouTube. But yeah, I thought it was very funny what they did, and you know, kind of accurate, not completely, but kind of a very good satire.
Yeah. The Talking Heads had fantastic like sidemen to help out. You had Bernie Worrell, you had Nona Hendrix, Adrian Belew, Johnny Marr. I mean, it's amazing who you guys like brought into your troupe. Who blew you the way the most of all those artists that were on there?
The guy that blew me away probably the most was the percussionist Steve Scale, who you know, he and I were side by side. And it really made playing a lot of fun. And you know, he was so much fun to play with. But really, all of those people were super to work with. Bernie Worrell is like a bona fide genius, you know, and or was, and also a real sweet guy. And he was kind of like when we first put the banded lineup together. He was kind of like acting as musical director. We didn't hire him for that purpose, but he sort of evolved into that, and he was really able to keep everybody calm and help people with the arrangements if they were struggling with a part or something like that. And just a real sweet guy. And you know, Busta Cherry Jones, who was in the first, you know, the Remain in Light tour, he helped us put that band together. We later, you know, we later realized that second bassist wasn't really what we were looking for. But he's the one that introduced us to Bernie and Nona and Steve Scale. Adrian Belew is a wizard on the guitar, and he's a nice Kentucky boy like me.
There's an article in Rolling Stone about Billie Eilish. She was asked if she knew who Van Halen was, and she didn't know. So they had this big controversy about why doesn't she know about Van Halen. And people are wearing like T-shirts of the Bad Brains, the Cramps, even Def Leppard. They as fashion, and they don't even know who those bands are. They never listen to them. I'm trying to figure out who's managing your vault. Like who is in charge of the Talking Heads and Tom Tom Club. Your visuals for both of those bands are outrageous. I don't know why a 14-year-old kid shouldn't be wearing a Talking Heads T-shirt and walking around with it right now.
Yeah, we, you're absolutely right. Our merchandising has been pathetic. We have an arrangement with Talking Heads that everybody has to agree on something before it gets done. And if one member says, no, I don't want T-shirts with Talking Heads because I've got a solo tour going on right now. That type of thing. If that happens, it doesn't get done, and it's just really stupid.
Yeah.
We do have a merch. Jerry put it all together with some merch company in San Francisco that are friends with him, but they seem to be doing a kind of a lame job of it.
People are wearing the Cramps, and they don't know them, or Fugazi, and I ask people, I'm like, do you know who this band is that you're wearing? And they're like, no. But the visuals for the Talking Heads and Tom Tom Club are fantastic. I don't know, I think that should be picked up. In my opinion, I'd love to see those shirts being worn by 14-year-old kids.
I'm in complete agreement.
Yeah. Okay, so the book is Remain in Love. It is published by St. Martin's Press. It's a truly written book by Chris Frantz. There's no ghostwriter on this project. It sounds like him. It's a great read. Chris Frantz, thank you for joining me on Something Came from Baltimore.
Thank you very much. It was a great pleasure.
Oh yeah, what a blast! Thank you.
I wish I could be in Baltimore in person, but
yeah, get some crabs.
We'll have to wait a few minutes.
You may find yourself living in a shotgun shack. You may find yourself in another part of the world. You may find yourself behind the wheel of a large... Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.
Hi, it's Tom Gouker, and I am the host of Something Came from Baltimore. Something Came from Baltimore is a words and music podcast, and it has famous and future famous artists like Sean Jones, Rupert Holmes, Auntie Hammy, Joey DeFrancesco, Go-Go Penguin, Joey Alexander, Bucanti, Gerald Albright, Paula Cole, and Kat Edmondson. It's music that matters. It's music for your ears. Listen and subscribe to Something Came from Baltimore and be a part of that Be More music scene. Something came from Baltimore. Something came from Baltimore.